One of the ways that we can work with the multiple inner battles that tend to happen and that can detract us from our natural state in meditation is to acknowledge that in our humanity, we have preferences for how we would like to feel, how we would like to experience our moments. So, at the beginning of our time together, what I'd like to do is to take a moment to reflect on our preferences for our experience and to acknowledge those and to hold them lightly. So, for example, when you turn your attention towards your physical state in this moment, let's take a moment to reflect on what our preference would be. I suspect that for most of us, we would like to feel energized, pain-free, relaxed, strong, balanced, integrated. And so we can acknowledge this. There is some wisdom in this orientation towards a more comfortable, a more balanced place within our physical state. And at the same time, let's hold that intention or that preference lightly to also allow for what is actually showing up in this moment in our physical body. So maybe there is some fatigue, some tension, some places that feel somehow separate, not integrated. An overall sense of imbalance, some aches and pains. And can we see that within presence, there is space for both our preferences and our ideals, and perhaps even our aspirations, as well as what is actually happening right now? We can hold both lightly so that they can coexist and perhaps even inform each other. Our preferences can create a space of possibility for our current state, and our current state can create, and an awareness of our current state can create a place from which guidance can come from within us to help us to make those choices that help us to move towards a more balanced physical state. Notice what happens in your being when you allow space for both your preferences as well as what is. those mini battles that are happening all over the place can let go. And just there's space to breathe and to pause and to open and to allow. And what would your preference be for your mental state, for your mind at any moment? I suspect that for many of us, it would be clarity, calm, openness, creativity, discernment, relaxation in the mind. And whatever other mental qualities that you value. And so let's acknowledge that. And with that, perhaps comes memories of times where you have enjoyed that. And simultaneously, let's also acknowledge where the mind is at in this moment. Perhaps it's pretty close to your preferred state. Perhaps not. But when we hold it all lightly, there is space for both to coexist and to inform each other. In fact, just reflecting on our preferences for our mind can call forth that state, can bring us more in touch with that state, can calm a mind that feels too active, too tight. So to have a preference does not mean that we need to grasp. And to acknowledge our current state does not mean that we need to change that or push that away. So there's an overall feeling of just holding it with open hands, soft, welcoming open hands, both of these sometimes seemingly opposing states. Good. And what would your preference be in terms of your emotional state? Perhaps there's an overall emotional tone that you would prefer to be feeling. Or perhaps it's a state of fluidity or authenticity, relaxation, aliveness. So as we reflect on our preferences for our various ways of knowing, various aspects of our being, there is an inner knowing that is called forth as to what is possible. So preferences put us in touch with what is possible, but they're not meant to then compare our current state with that. Presence has ample space for both our preferences as well as what is. And it's even possible that what we are experiencing in our emotional being right now is the way to getting closer and closer to those preferences, maybe the material that needs to kind of move through, the states that need to be embraced within presence. So, what is your current emotional state? And is there a place where the preference and the current state can coexist with both having access to the generosity of presence that allows them to exist just as they are? Do you have a preference now for your connection with soul or spirit, or however you want to put that, your higher self, but the unseen in you, the divine spark in you? And can you touch into that place that knows of the possibilities there? Perhaps that's a particular state of peace, of connection, of oneness, of inspiration, of love. We can really allow ourselves to feel and appreciate those preferences, which are stemming from a knowing of the possibilities. Sometimes when we are working a lot with allowing things to be as they are, we can disallow ourselves from having preferences. So today I'm wanting to explore that and to see where we can open to and respect the preferences that we do have as information, as an inner knowing of possibilities. as a guidance system. And as we hold those preferences for our spiritual being lightly, and yet with reverence at the same time, we can allow ourselves to be led deeper into the territory of soul or of spirit, not through trying or controlling, but just through the opening up, through the softening, through the sincere intention to connect more deeply to that which is eternal within each one of us. And it's interesting that as we hold our preferences lightly, it seems to naturally lead to holding our whole experience more lightly. And yet, that light hold seems to allow for more depth, more connection, more intimacy with ourselves. And so for these remaining minutes, I invite you to continue to hold your experience lightly. And to allow yourself to settle in the depth that that brings you to.